always thought I wanted this kind of life, but I never imagined any of this.
Do you know what you are?
I'm a superhero.
My friend Eric Davis saw a billboard with you on it that said, "Welcome to New Jersey."
Oh my God, yeah.
As you enter the New Jersey Turnpike, did you, like, first reaction?
Great marketing, must say. Props to Marvel. No, it's so cool. I visited Jersey for the first time like a couple weeks ago, and I was just so excited for their reaction. I think we really nailed the entire Jersey vibe and the people in it, and our show is definitely gonna hit home for a lot of people in Jersey.
100%. Well, for everyone around the world, I'm so obsessed with it. Also, I love your top, by the way. You look so cool. So dope. I know that Kamala I was watching an interview you did, and you said that Kamala just felt like a secret for such a long time to you. So I know it must feel so good for you for it to finally be like on the horizon of being out in the world. And I know Tom Holland was like notoriously not good at keeping secrets. So what was it like for you?
I am honored to keep these secrets. I think, speaking as a Marvel fan, and as Marvel fans, we just want to know everything about everything. There's subreddits just for the spoilers. Like, I'm a part of all of that. But now I know things that people actually don't know. I know, things about our show, and people are guessing things, and I know it's actually true. It's power. So I'm really excited that I get to keep these secrets. And I vowed to Kevin Feige that he will never get a spoiler out of me. So hopefully I stay by that.
You will. That's amazing. And speaking of Tom, actually, I was talking to some of the directors, and they said that they were shooting Spider-Man like at a set really close to yours.
Yeah.
So that must have been was that like so crazy to meet him on set for this?
Yeah, we shot right in the middle of Loki and No Way Home. So I was like, I'm in like the presence of greatness here.
What was like that first meeting like? Like, what was it like having him on set?
With Tom Holland. My first meeting was actually in the hair and makeup trailer. I was like half dressed because I needed to go to like hair and makeup. And so I just put on a puffy jacket and mid makeup, and we get a knock on the door, and they're like, "Someone wants to meet you." And I'm like, "No, I'm not ready." And Tom Holland walks in, and he was like in a Spidey costume and with sweatpants over it, and he looked so cool. And I was freaking out because he was a superhero, and I was so close to being in costume too. But here I am in biker shorts and a bra and a giant puffy jacket. It was super embarrassing. But yeah, he was super sweet, and he was, really making himself available if I had any questions. And I was like trying to get info on the show. He was trying to get info on the show. He's like, "So like, what's your show even about?" And I'm like, "What's Spider-Man about?" And he like fully shows me a photo of him with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield long before it was announced. And I was like, "Bro, I didn't need to." Okay.
That is so wild. Do you remember the first thing you said to him?
No, I tend to just have no filter when celebrities are in my midst. So I say things and I don't know what I'm saying. So things just come out of my mouth like word vomit. Yeah.
That's so funny. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's such an incredible first
welcome.
meeting with Tom Holland. And that's so cool that you knew that before everyone else. I would die. I love how you came to sort of find Miss Marvel, because I know you were a huge fan of Iron Man, and you discovered Miss Marvel through the Iron Heart books. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What was your first impression of Kamala, and what do you just love about her so much?
The first comic I read of hers was called Mecca, and it was about, Eid. And I was like, this is not a Marvel comic book. This is not a Marvel comic book showcasing Eid in like a way that I see it. And I like went up to my dad, because every time I buy comic books, it's like just me splurging all the allowance I get. So I always come home and I show my parents what I got. And I was like, "Look at this. Like, look, she's talking about Eid. Like it's brown people, and it's like what I'm experiencing." And suddenly it was in my element, because comic books were like, Marvel and comics were just my life. And so it was so cool that I could see that. And the fact that the comics were never really about her being Muslim or being Pakistani, it was just a part of her life. It was honestly just about this fanfic writing, Avengers loving nerd. And that was everything I would use to describe myself. And so I really felt seen, and you know, her culture and religion was just something that motivated her and guided her on her hero's journey. It was never just 100% of her personality. So I just thought that was so cool.
It's so beautiful to witness sort of the similarities between you and this character, but also I know you are very much your own person and how much she means to you and sort of the greater world at large, because representation really is everything. Like it really makes you feel like, what? Even though we shouldn't feel that way, sometimes we do.
It's true. Yeah, like film and TV shape how we see people. And so if you're never seeing yourself, then you're like, do I even exist?
100%. Yeah. So it's so cool that she's how you found that or saw yourself and now you are her. And I know you dressed up as Miss Marvel for Halloween when you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
So what was it like being on the show, cast as Miss Marvel? Tell me about the first time you put on her superhero suit.
Super meta. I remember the first costume fitting we had for the super suit. I had so many people. It was like at the end of the day, we did it in my trailer. I had so many people, you know, waiting outside my trailer just to see it. Our producers, directors, costume designers, everyone was there. We all wanted to see it for the first time. And I put it on and I just like, I couldn't feel anything. I can't even describe it. It was so, there were so many emotions and I couldn't even differentiate which emotions were which. And it was just extremely overwhelming and emotional. And I felt, you know, all I could think about was my 15-year-old self and the cosplay that I made. And now I have this gorgeous tailored piece, and our costume designer really incorporated so many beautiful cultural prints into the costume. And it really felt super personal and yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to see more of Kamala and the rest of the show and for the world to see it. And I'm excited to see Kamala in the Marvels. Yeah. What was it like jumping from the small screen to the big screen for that? And what do you love about Brie Larson and Teyonah Parris?
It was a transition, honestly. You know, our show kind of felt like we were filming this like little indie project. And it was a huge scale. Don't get me wrong. And I was like, I can't get bigger than this. And lo and behold, it got way bigger. I was in the midst of like so many wonderful people, and just Brie and Teyonah are such a supportive group of people to be around. And Nia DaCosta, our director, is like the most wonderful like actress director. She really cares about you. She asks, you know, your opinions on scenes. She makes you feel like a collaborative part of this process, and I just really appreciated that because I have so many opinions on Marvel, and they really took it to heart and really, you know, respected my opinion and listened to me, and I felt super valued.
Kamala, another adventure shirt. Cute. She thinks I'm some kind of weirdo.
You are a weirdo. Boys, excuse me.
Yeah.
You're kind of on my shirt.
Sorry.
I'm so stoked for you because to be in a Marvel show is like such a massive deal. Like you guys are in it. It's so cool. I wanted to first ask you about your first Marvel memory. Like what do you first remember when it comes to Marvel, and what do you love about Marvel's characters? And let's start with you, Matt.
Okay, so it wasn't the MCU. It was actually Tobey Maguire's original Spider-Man trilogy. I remember growing up on those movies. I would rewatch them. I would always go to my grandparents' house and literally they would have it on the DVD and I'd watch it like 4 times a day. Those were my core memories of Marvel, and I loved every second of it.
Hey, it's MCU now.
Yeah. It is MCU. So technically, yeah.
So it is MCU. I think a core memory for me with Marvel is the first movie I ever, when I was really little, or I guess younger, parents were strict, but like the first time I ever watched a movie by myself, just my sister and I without my parents, was Guardians of the Galaxy. It was the first time we were ever allowed to go by ourselves. And that was like a really big moment, and the movie was great. So that's like definitely a core memory.
That's a great like first one to see on your own.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So sick.
What about you, Rish?
The first toy that my dad ever bought me was an Incredible Hulk. And I remember that so clearly because I took it to school with me, and just like falling in love with the Hulk as a toy. And then like, that's such a specific thing in my mind. And then obviously the movies, you know, Spider-Man, we grew up on that. And I used to rewatch all the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films because I think that was around the time that I was like a teenager myself and just obsessed. And yeah, I mean, obviously the films as well, but that first toy is always a special thing, I think, for a kid.
Yeah, and I love that it was the Hulk. Okay, so Spider-Man has been brought up. And one of my favorite characters in the MCU is Ned Leeds, who is current Spider-Man's like sidekick. And you guys are superhero sidekicks to Kamala Khan, which I think is so cool. What do you think makes for a good superhero sidekick? Let's start with you, Yasmeen.
I'm going to say open mind, because you have to roll with the punches at all times and you don't know what's coming. So I think an open mind is the best thing that a sidekick can have.
I think the number one thing a sidekick can have is loyalty. I think that goes a long way with your superhero best friend. And yeah.
That's a good answer.
Sidekicks, I think, yeah, they have to be giving and caring and patient.
Patience, good one.
Patient is a good one, because you're going to get into a lot of stuff, and you guys get into a lot of stuff on the show. And I'm excited for people to see it because Miss Marvel is she's so relatable. What do you guys love about the character Miss Marvel, and why do you think Iman Vellani is just so perfect in the role? Rish, let's start with you.
I mean, you said it yourself. She is perfect. She is literally Kamala Khan, and she's obsessed with the MCU. She's obsessed with Carol Danvers, and Kamala is someone with a larger than life imagination. And I think fans will see themselves within this show. You know, in episode 1, we go to AvengerCon, and that's something that I think anyone would die to be at. And it's just great that within this story, we have one of the most relatable superheroes of all time. I mean, she's dealing with the most normal problems and at the same time navigating these newfound powers with the amazing community and support system around her.
Yeah, he just got it all.
He got it. He got it. I think people are gonna love Kamala. And Iman is like, her story of just booking the job and just going from MCU like fanatic to Miss Marvel is like the exact same story that Kamala Khan has. So like, there couldn't have possibly been a better person to play Kamala Khan, and she made our lives so easy.
Yeah, I mean.
Sorry.
No.
You keep our dynamics made it really, really easy to play her best friend, and she's amazing.
That was really cute. No.
She was like also very dedicated to the role. I mean, she is like, I have never seen a more perfect casting for her. Like, I mean, it's insane. Like, she is Kamala Khan, and just having the chance to be able to work with her and have these really, really fun scenes and stuff like that the fans are going to see. I mean, I'm so excited, and just building like a friendship with her in real life and then on screen, it was really great too. And yeah, Iman Vellani is Kamala Khan.
Yeah. And your character, Bruno's, that dynamic I love so much. And I can't wait to see more of her dynamic with all three of your characters, because all your characters are really interesting in their own right. I'm sure you guys have thought of this. I'm sure people have asked you before, but I really want to know, what other Marvel characters would you love your specific character to like interact with in the MCU?
Ooh,
we actually haven't gotten that question today.
Question.
Okay. Yeah. My answer.
I already know mine.
Also, still the same.
If Kamran was going to meet a character, I think it should be the Winter Soldier. I feel like he has a lot of wisdom to impart to Kamran.
I have two. It's either Shuri or Reed Richards.
Wait, can you guys tell me why? Tell me why too.
I can't tell you why.
I can tell you why.
Let's move on.
I can tell you why. Because
wait, that's amazing. Okay, Matt, you tell me why.
Reed. I think I'll go Reed Richards because he's the smartest man alive, right? I mean, he's got a high IQ, and Bruno has a high IQ. They can learn a thing or two from each other, I think. And
yeah.
I have to say Shuri. I think Nakia and Shuri interacting would be like, this is annoying, but like the most girl boss thing to happen. And they would both like bounce off of each other so well. I would love to see that.
Yes. Well, that's not annoying. That's amazing. My last question, I think, is for you, Rish, because obviously Kamran is just so mysterious, but also in the comics. So I was wondering, what type of spin were you able to specifically put on the character?
I think that it was, an honor to be able to play Kamran and to have Sana kind of have these open conversations with me. And I don't know what spin I brought to the character myself, to be honest, but it was a super collaborative experience. And I think that's something I'm really grateful for. I was coming from a place of a lot of love. And for example, I was able to pitch an idea of having the Sweatshop Boys in the show with Iman, and that's something we brought to the table. And so it was trying to find ways in which I could bring my own truth and truthfulness from my experiences as a British Indian into Kamran and the MCU.
That's so cool. That must have been so surreal too, to like see it on screen and like, have that moment of you're like, whoa, this is like part of my personal life.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing ever. But it's also just, so cool. Really surreal, like you said. Yeah.
Did something happen to you?
No, why? Did you hear something?
Kamala?
What does it feel like?
Cosmic.
I love seeing you guys in this show because you guys feel like a real family. I first wanted to know, what did you do to become a family, and a very relatable one at that? And we'll start with you, Saagar.
Yeah, well, it was like at the height of COVID, right? So we didn't really have the opportunity to spend time together outside of work. But I feel like we talked about this earlier. We kind of have this baseline understanding of each other because we all come from similar backgrounds. So that really helped just expedite the nature of our relationship. And we also had a lot of downtime between shots where we were in our trailer, and so we'd go outside and get to know each other a little bit between then. But most of it just came really naturally.
Yeah, it was very natural, and I don't think anybody forced it. They also got us into before shooting 3 weeks earlier to do all the prep, and part of it was just getting to know each other through rehearsals. But we're all of South Asian background, and so we totally get each other on that level, whether we're immigrants or second generation. And so it was very, very natural. It was very organic.
Mohan, was there a part of, as you guys are talking and spending time offset, was there a part of your personal stories that each of you connected to within each other? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I know where you're coming from, but I got to tell you something that they even don't know about it. I was paid to be nice to them. No. So
well, then he must be getting paid a lot because he's very nice.
Oh yeah. Why do you think I'm still here?
I can't believe I did it for free.
No, so to be honest, it's a little bit of what both of them have said. Yes, we come from the same cultural milieu, and we're aware of it. And South Asian communities, whichever part of the world they are in, we tend to continue that legacy, which passes down from parent to child and so on, and which is what our characters are. Muneeba, Yusuf, Saagar. So that one is that we just portrayed that, and we're trying, as a typical South Asian family, we're trying to imbibe that with our children. So offset, we were just being ourselves, and we related. We just related. And Saagar and I, even though he's born and brought up in America, we'd sometimes just break into Hindi Urdu, and it would be so precious because we're driving back to our hotels, to our apartments, and we'd start talking. And I mean, I don't know if he felt this, but I felt really warm about this. I'm saying that this is what Miss Marvel is about. This is what Miss Marvel is about, bringing people together. I'm from India. I come from a different mindset and, political, social, everything. Yeah. But here I am, I'm just connected with him, get-go.
It's so wild to have that familiarity on such a big set like Marvel, right? It's kind of it feels surreal. It shouldn't feel surreal, but it does. And I think a part of that familiarity too, for the audience, comes from Kamala Khan. I want to know sort of what about Kamala brings this entire amazing, warm family together? And what was it like working with Iman? And we'll start with Mohan and sort of go back that way.
Oh, Iman, from the word go, from day one of reading, I had said that this girl was born to be Miss Marvel. And now she's proven it to the rest of the world. And she was just a dear. She was probably as, or maybe a bit more lost at sea, like we were, being in the Marvel universe. And it was great because on one hand, you have this big thing that we're part of Marvel, but then we had the comfort and the reassurance that we all connect because of the social milieu that we come from. So being with Kamala was, I keep going back to this point that the script gave us everything that we needed. So the lines that I had with Iman, with Kamala, the lines that she had, the moments that Muneeba had, which are precious. What Muneeba and Kamala share are precious, as are Yusuf and Kamala's scenes. And Saagar, and that is Aamir and Kamala's scenes. This is just also precious. And Iman just has segued in from a teenager from Canada into the Marvel universe and onto the world. And she's just so magical.
Yeah, she's a very quick study. She caught on very quickly. I'm sure, for her, there must have been moments of where it was still a learning process and probably still is. I mean, she'd never done this before. Mm-hmm. And it's not just on set. You have to learn the business of show business also, how to be, who to be, etc. But also as far as Kamala goes, I think that the family is super protective of Kamala, especially. We're not as protective of him because he's older, and but we're all three. Even the brother is very protective of Kamala, and so I think that and building that dynamic was also pretty. It was pretty easy, yeah. And then each of us have some beautiful moments with her, and so you see these strains of three different relationships. Yusuf has just straight on love and caring. Muneeba has the most textured, layered, and he has the big brother protectiveness. So I think you'll see different layers even within that family dynamic.
Yeah, I think with Aamir and Kamala and with Saagar and Iman, there are a lot of parallels in our relationship. Whereas
Yeah.
like in the show, Kamala is like baby girl, like we're all a family. I'm like, my character is supposed to be a lot older than her. I think like 9 or 10 years older than her. So I'm kind of operating as a third parent, but like the cool parent, like the one that she can talk to, and like I will give her um, parently advice as an older brother. And in real life, I am a lot older than Iman, and this is all really new to her. Just like in the show, everything that's happening to her is really new to her,
Right.
and it's unique to her. But in real life, everything that's going on in Iman's life is very new to her and unique, because not everybody that's 17 years old when she got this job is going to go through something like a major life moment like this.
Right.
This is
This is
like,
one in a million.
this is a lottery.
Yeah.
And like, so whether it's in the show as Aamir or in real life as Saagar, I feel like my relationship with Iman is to just like protect and just make sure that she's okay. Because in the show and in real life, this is a lot for someone to take on, and she's handling it with grace and with stride. And I try to be there as much as I can for her.
But you're staring out the window in your little fantasy land. Kamala, hey, already? Really? Come on, like.
Do I have to figure out my whole future before lunch or?
It's so wild. You co-created the first Marvel Muslim superhero. Like, that is surreal in itself. What was it like seeing Kamala Khan in live action? And did you ever think that there would be a TV show sort of in the 10 years that we've seen her in the comics? Because it's a very short amount of time.
It is kind of crazy how quickly it all happened. Like, I think I'm constantly like, how did this happen? This all feels very weird and surreal. And I've also just, my head has been sort of down, just for so long, just trying to get it all together. So I'm just kind of looking up and being like, wow, this is wild. Like almost 10 years later. And it's, she has her own television show. I mean, honestly, I feel really excited about it. And I feel very thrilled that people have responded so well to her, and they responded so well in the comics, and that, Kevin and the whole team, and Kevin Lou, Victoria, Brad, they all just were thinking that this is the next great hero to tell a Marvel Studios, show with. It's wild. I definitely never thought that we would have a show coming at it. I didn't think we were going to get past issue 9 when the comics came out. So it's crazy to be here in LA with the billboards all over LA. It's what?
It's so wild. And it like came from you, which is like even crazier. Is there anything from your own personal life that you put into this show? I'm just curious.
I mean, so much of it. I mean, the entire, I think, inception of the character was a lot of like, it sprung out of, stories about myself and me trying to, telling the stories of me navigating being, a teenager in America and Jersey, and being brown and South Asian, and dealing with my family and going to the mosque and all these kinds of things that were so part of my everyday life. And, just the little moments, the little kind of cultural, strange, awkward, funny moments of being in a brown family. I think that was a big part of having those little spots, and also feeling like you looked out into the world and, your heroes didn't look like you, but they were still your heroes. And so it was fun to explore that journey just through the perspective of the Marvel universe. And of course, now through, specifically now in the MCU, I think that was very true to things that I had experienced growing up. And I was also a big Marvel fan. So all of these things are true.
So you're Miss Marvel.
Well, I hope we are all Miss Marvel. That's why
we are all.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think that's why everyone loves her so much, because she is so relatable. And I think when I turned on this show, I already knew I loved Kamala Khan for my own reasons and reasons of representation. But I didn't think I was going to be so obsessed with her family too. And I know you mentioned Brown family and all the ancillary characters that come after her. You know, I think of course in Marvel, we all love them, but these characters specifically really shine through and resonate, I think, in a really warm way on screen. What was it like for you to see Kamala Khan's family come to life?
Oh my God, so cool. I remember actually the first picture that we took of them after, because we were doing some camera tests and they were all kind of in costume and wardrobe. And we took a picture of them for one of our props, and it was so cool. I was like, just kept pinching the director. I was like, oh my God, like that's them. They all look alike. Like they look like they're part of the same family. Like it's so cool. And they're so funny and quirky and weird and just bring so much of themselves to these characters. And I just feel like we have the best cast and the best family. And I think they bring something really, unique to the Marvel universe too. Like there's no real big families in the Marvel universe. And Kamala kind of comes, like all Brown families, comes with a car, like a whole carload of family members with her. So
yeah, that's what's so exciting about them. And I love that you mentioned that they all look like a family, because so often we see families in shows and TV where you're like, they don't look like a family. And they really do. And they not only do they look like it, they feel like it. And I also think Iman Vellani is she's so incredible in the role of Miss Marvel, and she really brings them all together. Was there anything unique about her portrayal that surprised you?
I think one, obviously, like what surprised me was like how much she was like Kamala. I mean, it's just kind of crazy how much she had similar like quirks and interests. I mean, obviously she's such a huge Marvel fan herself, so that in itself was kind of wild and amazing. But what I think surprised me a little bit about Iman was that she also has kind of like an edgy and like strong sense of humor that comes out of nowhere. And you're like, whoa, like how do we incorporate that into the character a little bit more? Like a lot of times, like we'll be on set and, we'll have a scene and I'll be like, Iman, is this feeling right? Like, do you feel like this is something that you would say? Do you feel like comfortable even saying it? And, at first she's like, oh, I don't know about, and then she, also found her voice in the course of the show, which is really awesome to see. And she would give feedback. Well, she's like, well, this is what I would struggle with. And this is how I would respond, and just kind of making it a little bit more her own in the course of the show was really great. So we brought, as much as like Iman is Kamala, we brought a little bit, we certainly brought more of Iman into Kamala's story for sure. And it's been really great.
Oh, that's so exciting. That's going to be exciting for us to see on screen too, her finding her voice, which I just love. I also love Kamala Khan's powers in this. Tell me about the conversations you guys were having when it came to adapting her powers to television, and what sort of rules you guys set for her powers for this show.
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted to make sure that the powers were, obviously had the essence of what, was in the comics, with like the embiggen fists and sort of those cool visuals, but at the same time, link it to kind of, have some connective tissue with the MCU and MCU storylines that were going to be happening down the road, and also link it to this storyline of her family and her heritage, which is inherently the story of the entire show of linking Kamala to her past and trying to better understand it. And so in order for her to really understand herself, so it sort of made sense for her powers to come through that ultimate context, which I think is what the comics did too. Is the comics were telling a story of like what it means to be a person of color and constantly be hiding yourself and changing your body accordingly. And in the same way, when Kamala gets powers, she sort of, in her own way struggles what to do with them and how to, and thinks she has to be as one specific way. And then of course, realizing where the powers come from, tell that identity story.
Maybe they're right. I spend too much time in Fantasyland.
That is not you.
It's not really the brown girls from Jersey City who save the world. That's a fantasy too.
Congratulations. I know you guys directed the first episode of Miss Marvel, which is so huge. And I feel like that's always a challenge when you have to like introduce a brand new character. So what was the first impression about Kamala Khan that you really wanted to shine through in that first episode?
Well, we wanted to show our world as much as possible, to really get inside her head and show the fact that she's this, bit quirky Pakistani American girl that's constantly, aspiring to maybe become a superhero, but not thinking that really she could become one, trying to be cool, but being clumsy in that. And we right away wanted to try to, show what a fantasy world would look like, which is why we injected that animation aspect right from the beginning, it was not in the script originally, but we thought that's like the perfect translation of her dream world, of her personality. And yeah, it just makes it right away an endearing, cool, fun character to follow, very charming.
That's fascinating because I didn't know that you guys came up with the animation, and the animation is so good. It's like such an integral part of the show. How did you guys land on like what types of animations that you wanted to be a part?
Yeah, well, we had our Spider-Verse is one of our favorite Marvel movies. So we were thinking if we make a live action version of Spider-Verse,
that would be cool.
That would be super cool. So that was a gigantic inspiration.
Scott
but also
Pilgrim,
Scott Pilgrim was a big inspiration. So yeah, that those movies really are, had so much impact on us and really translated, the fact that she's dreaming and creating in her mind. And
we had to convince Kevin Feige to allow us to do that, because obviously it's not present in the other MCU TV shows and movies. So we did a whole presentation and explained like we were lawyers, like why it's important and why it's important for a character. And surprisingly, Kevin said, go for it. Don't go overboard, but do it.
I picture you guys like just, all right, we're going to talk to Kevin and this is what you're going to say.
Exactly. That's exactly
the whole
was.
dossier,
and some YouTube videos like this, and then for the opening it's like stop motion, and then you have the wall, and then she text messages and all that, and he said yes on all of that.
You guys are so funny and like fun to be around. That's amazing. And Adil, I know that Tom Holland in the Spider-Man movies really set the bar for you, and I love that you guys even just mentioned Spider-Man, because to me, I think it really shines through that Kamala Khan is sort of like this female Peter Parker, character that we haven't had. What is it about those movies specifically that inspired you? And do you see any of Peter Parker in Kamala?
Well, like Spider-Man Homecoming was in itself already a John Hughes homage, stylistically, but also the story, the fact that it's really that teenage coming of age story, which we also have. We have also that coming of age aspect in it. And John Hughes was a huge inspiration for us. So, and New York, Queens, New York is like the big brother, you would say, like the Jersey is the little sister of New York. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to have that kind of, sweet rivalry between the two characters. And funny anecdote, actually, when we shot the Avenger Con at the end of episode 1, Tom Holland came on set to visit. It was crazy to have Peter Parker right there,
It's Kamala Khan, Spider-Man and Miss Marvel.
Yeah, so that was
no way.
Yeah. They were shooting No Way Home on the same lot, actually, and we visited his set, and then one day he visited our set, and that was pretty dope.
That's so cool. Did you guys get to talk to him and like bounce ideas off of him at all?
Well, he was actually just impressed by the sets, and I think that maybe who knows, in the future it might be cool to have those characters together. But I think that No Way Home set the bar so high for us. It's really a masterpiece, and we can only hope and do our best that Kamala Khan is going to follow a same journey and have a gigantic fan base as well, to have like an emotional payoff at the end.
I think for sure, having seen a couple episodes of this, because she's so relatable and amazing. And I love that you brought up that New Jersey is sort of this little brother, sister to New York. And I don't know if you guys know, but a friend of mine lives there and saw this huge billboard. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, with Miss Marvel on.
Of Miss Marvel, and it says "Welcome to New Jersey"
Yes.
off the highway.
Yeah,
that's insane.
It's also an iconic image from the comics, but also in the TV show. And so one of the episodes you're gonna see that iconic image, and it's Jersey, it's Jersey all over the place.
Jersey for life.
Jersey represent.
You guys are amazing. What do you think makes Kamala Khan such an interesting superhero?
Well, it's the fact that even though she's a Pakistani Muslim girl, and that relates a lot to us because we are Moroccan Belgium. So when we were teenagers, we were also searching for our identity. Who are we? Do we belong in the Moroccan Muslim culture or the Belgian culture? And struggling with that. Well, she has those same kind of struggles, so which is very particular for our identity. But at the same time, because you have that coming of age story and just a teenage angst struggle with the parents, it's also very universal and very relatable to everybody, even if you're not a Muslim girl. So that is
on the other hand, she's also a big fan of the Marvel superheroes. So this is pretty much a big homage to all the Marvel fans in the world, and it's like she shows that she's a fan and she aspires to be one of the superheroes, and she becomes it. So it's like everybody can be a superhero. So
right, it's so meta, and it is so inspiring. And I love that you brought that up, because you guys had to set up her fandom for Captain Marvel. So how did you work with Iman to make that feel really authentic?
Well, Iman is, her biggest fan of Marvel you can imagine. Her favorite movie is Iron Man. That's the all-time, pure perfection of movies in her mind. And Kevin Feige is her idol. So she was just, growing up, dreaming to be part of the MCU one day, but without really believing that she could be part of that. And all of a sudden, Iman Vellani is playing a superhero in the MCU. She's part of it. And that's really like very meta and parallel with the story of Kamala Khan, looking up to Captain Marvel, dreaming about the Avengers and being maybe one day a hero, but not really believing that it could happen. And all of a sudden she has those superpowers and her life changes. So it's really Kamala Khan and Iman Vellani's story are very, very similar.
I have to ask you guys, because I love high school everything, and I wanted to know how you created her high school life and what movies and shows did you look to that inspired the high school that you create in the show?
All the Belgium high schools in Belgium are totally different from America. Different. So for us, when we watch that on TV, it's so whoa, that is how it is. And
that's so cool.
So the John Hughes movies, Ferris Bueller, and all that kind of movies. There was a TV show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose, which was a big inspiration.
Saved
to
by
us.
the Bell.
Yeah, Saved by the Bell, Boy Meets World, all of these TV shows. Well, what else? It's also like recent movies. Booksmart, Lady Bird was also an inspiration. But that's we were like, if one day we get the chance to do a high school movie, it's gonna be all the most American high school thing I've ever seen in recent years.
What are high schools in Belgium like?
They're boring.
But I mean, I would say they're pretty classic,
Yeah.
It's more
You don't have like the closets where you put your book in.
The lockers.
No.
Yeah.
Uniform. I mean, I went to a school in uniform, a very Catholic uniform school. So.
I went in a very old school. Everything was old.
Medieval,
It's like medieval.
It's like Harry Potter. Schools in Belgium are like the schools in Harry Potter. That's how high schools are.
Are you sure that we can keep that on?
To no mind.
It's a lawsuit.
Great, that'll make Captain Marvel in court. It won't be the first case in the American judiciary to hug it out.
Such a pleasure to meet you. And it's such a pleasure to even see like this Muslim Marvel superhero come to life, live action. When you're adapting a character like Kamala Khan, what is important about the character to get right when you're adapting it for television?
I think in the particular case of Kamala Khan and the incredible comic books that this show is based off of, and that kind of gave life to this character, it felt most imperative to me that we're focusing on who she is in that comic book. And who she is in that comic book is someone who's deeply optimistic, deeply joyful, compassionate. Every situation that she's in, anytime she's in a tricky situation, she's approaching it from a really loving place, and from a place that's very there's just a joy to it, watching her think her way out of a puzzle. And I think that was something that was always our North Star in the breaking of this show and in the writing of it, that's always going to be who Kamala is. And whatever she goes through, however she matures through it, that element of her might mature, but it won't change. That's foundational. And that felt so important in the adaptation of this character. And the other big piece that felt really important was her relationship with her family and with her friends. Like that family in the comics just makes your heart soar. And I wanted to do that on screen, I wanted them to be different and complicated and nuanced people who we just love spending time with. And we know they're all coming from a loving place. And I think that for me was so integral in the adaptation of this.
I love that you brought up family because I actually was planning on asking you, what did you want to say about them? Because they're my favorite Marvel family I've ever seen. I actually just spoke to the cast and their charisma, as the optimism in Kamala is infectious. It must have been really rewarding for you to see them like act out everything. I just feel like everyone nailed the landing, you know?
Oh my God. I think so too. I think they all did amazing. I want to cry. They're so amazing. They're so good. Genuinely, like, I can't even express how it feels, but to see that family brought to life with like that, those layers and with that love and with that, like, oh, how do we navigate the world right now? How do we navigate each other? And how do we navigate your teenage into adulthood and do it with charm and do it with like heart and with, all of those things. I don't know. This family just came together perfectly. I'm like, I mean, I love my family, but like, this is a great family. I'd hang out with this family. And I think also for me personally, like,
yeah,
you inherently, you're in your writing, yourself, you come out in your writing. And I think, especially when I look at Muneeba and that character, and I kind of am like, did I just write my mum into this show? There's like I didn't, but it's very much based on the comics. But there's flourishes, there's things that felt really emotional to me to watch them bring those characters to life. Yeah, I'm so impressed by them every single day.
And to see that representation on screen, I'm sure meant so much to you, to know that you had a mom like that, which is why this show is so powerful and transformative. But speaking of powerful, I wanted to ask you about Kamala's powers.
Yeah.
How did you decide what type of powers she was going to have on television?
Yeah, it was really a group decision. And it was a decision that's, some of the MCU elements of a show like this are really about what's happening in the MCU. So you kind of get check-ins and you're like, okay, we'll steer in that direction, steer in this direction for reasons that we can't reveal to you because you have a chatty mouth. So a lot of the time things are guided by things that I can't even speak to. But it was really an early doors decision. It was about translating it to live action, making the powers feel like they fit into the wider MCU for reasons TBD or TB explained or screened. The one thing that I will say about the powers that even though they've changed in some ways is that the element that I don't think has changed in its execution it has, but the thing that felt really important in the comics was that Kamala and her power set are inherently connected through her psychology, where she's at emotionally in her internal world. And that connectivity in the comic books is vital to that story. In the same way, in the television show, her and her powers, how she feels about herself, her connection to her body, her connection to, and her changing relationship with her powers, connected to her emotional world, that connection also exists between this different power set and the character we see on screen. So that element is really important to the comic books and really important to me. So I hope people can still see that element that's so important.
It's interesting to hear that like the MCU is so storybooked out that they know what type of powers she's going to need. And that's dependent upon like something else that's happening later. But equally, it's also cool to hear that her emotion, much like us as humans, like our anxiety and our energy and our power can affect the world around us. So I love that that's sort of in the DNA of her powers in the show. You mentioned obviously other, how this is going to fit into the larger Marvel picture. So we know that Kamala Khan is a major fan of Captain Marvel. Bisha, what was important for you to convey about that specific fandom? Why does she love Captain Marvel so much? And why does Captain Marvel mean so much to her?
I mean, Captain Marvel is rad. It's like my first like gut instinct answer to that. I think that gets explained in the pilot in a really fun way. And I think it's, well, in the comics certainly, and I think kind of inherently in the reality of what Captain Marvel is, there's this all-American feel to Captain Marvel. And that at the start point of the story in the comics, certainly, and to some extent in the story of the TV show, is that that's something aspirational to Kamala. That she doesn't think it's in the lines of the episode as well, that aspiring to be like that is something that's fundamentally larger than her world and part of this bigger piece of acceptance and like universally beloved that I think all teenagers want to be, maybe a little bit universally beloved. Certainly in my case, I wanted to be. And I think that's part of her admiration for Captain Marvel. Also, she like full on like saved us in Endgame. So, why wouldn't you want to be like her? And her relationship with that changes certainly as Kamala's relationship with herself changes, that fandom as well. But the fun thing about the fandom is I'm a fan. And so I got to play in this really great playground of like what is it like to be a fan of the thing that you then get to be a creator within? And then the meta levels of within the show. Now there are fans of people that we're fans of outside of the show. All of that is so much fun to play around with that sandbox. It was a real joy to be able to do that.